Hello everyone, so here I'm showing you a short but very important video to demonstrate how to optimize token usage with OpenCloud. So as you all know, OpenCloud is a very interesting technology today. It allows you to create autonomous agents, but the real issue is API consumption, whether it's for LLMs like Cloud, HGPT, Gemini or others, and especially now that Claude actually requires you to connect it with the API so that it handles the API consumption directly, and that's very, very expensive. So I'll quickly show you in this video. Here are two very important tips to really help you save and above all, effectively control your token consumption on the OpenCloud platform. So to start things off, let us look at a quick reminder about the underlying OpenCloud technology. It simply allows you to create a sophisticated autonomous agent that makes complex decisions automatically without any manual intervention. What's really interesting here is that I enter the chat here, so in OpenCloud, of course, after having installed it. And here I can give him tasks, executions, jobs to do, checks, any task in fact that the company needs. You see here, for example, here I'm connecting it to my cloud, Sonnet 4.6. But what is he going to do? He is going to consume the tokens. He is going to see all the consumption. And of course, this comes at a cost, as you can see here. Here, every time I actually end up reaching the consumption limit. So what's the solution? Let's try to understand. What exactly is Claude doing? Even if we don't assign tasks, it keeps consuming our tokens all the time. Because, first of all, it actually uses a memory that is really very interesting, much more impressive than the memory you find on ChatGPT, for example. In a ChatGPT session, if you ask more than 50 questions in the same session, it will forget what was said at the beginning. But here with OpenCloud, it really has a very significant memory. But memory alone isn't enough because it also has access to tools. Sometimes I tell it, for example, to access my email inbox. That way it can look at your emails and even reply to them. Why not? It can have access to your calendar. So by combining memory and tools, it gains access. And this access happens through what we call the heartbeat. The heartbeat is really the most important thing in these systems today. Because thanks to this heartbeat, it will constantly check the progress of the project. And that is exactly the point where, even if you happen to disconnect your session from Claude, Claude continues to process your tasks steadily in the background. That's why we call it an autonomous agent. And for it to work, check and verify, it needs this heartbeat. Because here, it will even check the progress status of your project. It will see if there are any blockages. It will also review the next steps and even look at the very latest activity and updates. And the agent, always starts from scratch each time. But thanks to this heartbeat, it can access all the theories and understand the context very quickly without losing context. That's what happens when we work directly with Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude. We always have this problem with the theories. So today, for the company, you'll see that the company is actually going to set up an agent to perform specific tasks. I'm going to show you actually how we can prevent the system from checking about this heartbeat. So just to be clear, when you install OpenCloud, there's a heartbeat check and checks every 30 minutes. So among the solutions I recommend for you, if you don't actually have a specific task assigned, with OpenCloud, it actually requires that every 30 minutes, it has to check or synchronize. So as a result, I can actually extend this period, and instead of leaving it at 30 minutes, I can set it to something else. For example, 24 hours. I can set it to once a month. It all depends on the need, because there are a lot of tasks that when I do them myself, with OpenCloud, it doesn't necessarily mean that OpenCloud checks its heartbeat every 30 minutes. I can launch tasks and the agent will execute them. And of course it can check, but there's no need for it to check and verify the heartbeat every 30 minutes because that's what will consume resources. As you can see here, tokens are consumed in both directions, in the input and in the output. So how do you do it? It's simple. Watch when I come here to cron jobs, so here where we do the scheduling, where we set up the schedules. As for the check here, it's active. Well, we can leave it active. As you'll see here, actually, we can simply go and deactivate this check. So my advice is not to deactivate it. Always leave the check, the heartbeat, because it's very, very important. But on the other hand, if I put 100 here, you'll see there's the schedule here. I can tell it not to do it within 30 minutes. That is, for example, I can, for instance, click here and I can choose date. For example, day. And here I can tell it, there you go, you're going to check once a day. And so as a result, when I actually set this kind of information, the system, in fact, it won't actually go and check during the day to do it. There you go, information and research basically, and actually lose me money because tokens are expensive. So that's what I recommend when you're working with a cloud platform. Otherwise, your consumption will really be, it will be huge and large, and we don't really need that. Look here in the chat, in the same day, actually, it checks a huge number of times. So, second solution. This is also a solution I recommend. Either it will take, if you have hosting with Hostinger, so on an external VPS, I use this page, I'll put the link for you in the description. It actually allows me to have control so that I can click here, as you'll see, and simply request to disable or stop, that is to pause the server. If, for example, I don't have any tasks assigned to OpenCloud and I don't need that agent to stay on standby. So, as a result, when I stop it, there will simply be absolutely no consumption. Neither of my tokens nor any of the various credits will be used. And that's it. So I can rest easy because personally, I actually have a lot of VPS. I have several VPS for the dongles. Right now I have 13 or 12 VPS. So these VPS, if each one is actually going to be connected to OpenCloud at the same time, those from Open and Cloud. And that's it. If I actually forget about these Open and Cloud instances or agents that are going to be active. So the heartbeat is really going to consume a huge amount of tokens, especially if you have a lot of skills installed inside. And sometimes there are heartbeats, because they're per skill and per agent. So imagine that everyone is going to check, verify, and do routine things, but for me, there's really no action happening behind it. So it's pointless. And as a result, that leads to losing money. And that's it. The tutorial is finished. So please write to me in the comments if you want us to do a little live session together on OpenCloud. Yes, we'll have a general discussion. We'll do some tests together. And then I'll try to answer your questions in real time. So if many of you write in the comments, open a cloud live. Well then, I promise to set up a live session so we can all be connected together at the same time. With that, I'll see you very soon.